My name is Steve Winter. I'm a network engineer with PathSolutions here. I was asked to come up here and speak about VoIP call quality issues. And there's some common misconceptions that happen when you are talking about not only deploying VoIP, but also troubleshooting VoIP. So we were going to cover that. We're also going to cover kind of a case study that we have set up that we worked with a Fortune 500 cosmetics company and kind of the issues that they worked with and the experiences they had. Recent survey, 31% of workplace tech users said that network outages and poor internet speeds were the highest reoccurring technology problem. The ability for you to basically look at the health and welfare of your network and how that relates to voice over IP. VoIP, you're only as good as your weakest basically network link. Wherever you're going to put that IP endpoint, the health and welfare of that network is going to be key to the success of making that happen. So it's really just so easy to blame that VoIP infrastructure. Just to say, oh, the SIP sessions aren't working, and really can kind of, to point the finger that way. But without a holistic view of your network and basically being able to troubleshoot in real time and historical to troubleshoot calls gone bad, that's the biggest problem that you deal with, really troubleshooting VoIP today. But, so what does that mean? We get caught up in really the VoIP call quality myths. That these are usually 5 steps that people take that usually can be somewhat effective, but in many cases they're misleading, or worse, basically they're misconstrued as gospel. And we're going to cover those all nicely, but we're also going to talk about a case study. So one of our big customers, they approached us, and without naming names, a Fortune 500 cosmetics company. They came to us with the idea that we're having just calls dropping left and right. Now the calls kind of had an interesting, really, characteristic. That first leg of the call would be fine. Whenever they added a second leg of the call, or they were using video, it would just fall over. This was affecting basically sales. This was customer facing. This was just a horrible nightmare for them. So for us, they reached into us, and we had some interesting visibility issues that we gave them that helped them troubleshoot. So I'll cover that as I'm covering, as I'm briefly going through our myths. So let's start here. You can trust a standard network assessment report. Hands up, basically, during your VoIP deployment, did you have a team of people, or maybe you guys came in and did a network assessment? So really, that network assessment is somebody just running into that room, looking around, saying, you're good. But how long did that guy hang out? Was he there a week? Was he there at quarter end or year end? Was he there during a big product release, when basically you're just hammering that network, trying to get that product out the door? Whoops. So the network assessment, in many cases, can give you a very brief glimpse, but it's not the longer term, can I really support it? And can I support it when my network is being pushed? So network assessments, less effective. Next, extra bandwidth is a cure-all. If you build it, they will come. If you basically just give them a fatter pipe, then I'll never have to worry about voice or video quality. Not true. So the analogy we like to do is, you have a freeway, you have so many lanes on that traffic, but if that freeway is full of potholes, if you had more lanes with potholes, you're still going to have a bad experience. That traffic is not going to go any faster. You just made more lanes of it. So really, the idea that if you throw bandwidth at it without shaping that traffic, you're just making your problem a little bit bigger. But of course, you give them bandwidth. Gosh darn it, that's what YouTube's for. They're going to use it. So bandwidth is not a cure-all. No WAN, no worries. How many people here are single site? Anybody single site? Everybody are basically remote sites. Some people are lucky enough that they just have one campus, one office. I'll never have any voice quality issues with that. But you know what? You still have the separate network equipment. That equipment talks to each other. They have these kind of things called trunk ports that basically those interconnects become key, and those become choke points. And also key network equipment, those layer 3 boundaries. If those devices are having problems, that's going to be almost a guaranteed call quality issue. So even a single site, those guys, if you're lucky enough you got a single site, that's still not a cure-all, and that's not a guarantee you won't have any sort of voice quality issues. You can trust your network. Network conditions are pretty much like weather and changing constantly. So I mentioned those quarter end, those year end pushes, those are huge, and those things happen. And really devices unexpectedly fail. You're going to have equipment that fails even on that single site. Okay, last one here. Sniffer solves all your problems. The great analogy of that is if you're trying to figure out what's broken with your network. Same way basically if you're trying to figure out traffic on a road. Do you run up to the edge of an overpass and look straight down? Because that's what you're looking at. You're looking at basically the little packets passing right in front of you. But if you can actually look up at that network, look at the congestion that's happening, where that really, the high level view of that network, that's the visibility you need. But a sniffer is just that, looking at the apps, and you can verify a problem exists. Yep, sure enough, we're getting some packet loss. These things are out of order, but you're looking at that instance right there. Okay, but now we need to go over there. So let's run over there, let's look down, okay. Sniffer is not the cure-all. You really need a holistic network tool that allows you to look into all those interfaces and give you that health and happiness of the network. So, what was causing the drop calls? Let's go visit back to our cosmetics company. These guys, 50 to 60 sites, nationwide, actually international, they had gone in and they were having problems. The problems were that voice and video traffic. For that single leg call, it was okay. They had the bandwidth, it was okay. But that second leg, without traffic shaping, without the ability to look into that QoS queue management, look into that queue and be able to shape that traffic and troubleshoot those queues, that was their big blind spot. Now they had a couple CIEs, but those guys were busy and just weren't paying attention. So with VoIP traffic moving, is it a concert, or is it really a jam? Is it working well? Is that higher priority voice and video traffic receiving the preferential treatment it should? In the case of these guys, it was not. They actually had not configured queues. But it wasn't clear to them because really the CCIEs were the only ones that could log in at the CLI level and tell you that. But once you can expose that, and what we do through Queue Vision, the ability for you to look into that class-based QoS configuration. Look at basically, is that your high priority voice queue configured correctly? And more importantly, do you catch basically the fat fingers? So basically this is DSCP EE, should be EF. So really being able to catch those, quickly identify them, and make sure that traffic is being prioritized correctly without having to basically have that propeller head basically spinning and logging in and looking at that CLI. So really, Total View as a package, the case study really, they implemented queues. They implemented queues correctly. Voice and video was working well. Feel free, I'll be up here for a little while. Basically, we have some great engineers manning the booth here. As a product, Total View, the network visibility and that queue management is absolutely just key in troubleshooting for both basically data networks and VoIP networks.